Did not hate his opponents. That's where I disagreed with Charlie.
It's an important healing moment.
I forgive him.
Hopefully forget the hate that he spewed.
I'm actually somewhat speechless.
Someone has committed a crime, it doesn't make them a criminal.
If we can blend those things, that's kind of like blending the conservative liberal ideology. All right, guys, it's September 23rd, 2025, also year 5786 in the Jewish calendar. So it is the Jewish New Year right now, Rosh Hashanah. I am in Temple at the moment, and we are pre-taping here in the Rumble Studios in Longboat Key. And, I'm thrilled to be here. As I mentioned yesterday, Charlie Kirk found this building alongside Rumble CEO Chris Pavlovski, who's sitting right over there and going to be joining me in a few minutes. And we'll talk a bit about Charlie and some of the things we were building together and his legacy and all of that stuff. But we did want to do a quick pre-tape episode for you, and also just welcome to all of the new viewers. We've been seeing what's going on with the viewership and the subscribers and all those good things. So welcome to everybody, and I'm glad that it seems like a whole bunch of you have found a little refuge here amidst the madness, because there's a lot of political and social and cultural madness right now, and I think we've from the comments I'm reading, the tone we're hitting is just right, and it happens to be the way I'm looking at things, so that is nice. I want to just do one or two stories up top, then we'll sit down with Chris for a little bit, and we'll finish up with the Rubin Report Locals.com community Q&A. But the first thing that I wanted to hit is just sort of the fallout stuff. Yesterday, obviously, we covered a lot of Charlie's legacy and the things that he cared about, both spiritually, religiously, and politically. But the media portion of this and the fallout on the political side obviously is the stuff that ends up framing the way we all look at all of these things. And of course, the big thing that happened post Charlie's assassination was the joke, I guess we're using the word joke, a quote unquote joke by Jimmy Kimmel, where he claimed that the shooter was MAGA, even though that absolutely was not true. And then it's being reported that he actually refused to apologize for the joke, which if he had done, it's likely that the affiliates wouldn't have dropped him. In any event, there's a big brouhaha where more people on the left seem to be upset that Jimmy Kimmel is gone rather than Charlie Kirk is gone. Their gonings are quite different. But listen to this from Barack Obama. After years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators it doesn't like. Now, that is rather interesting. The left, and I would say largely led by Barack Obama, had no problem when Gina Carano was fired from Disney for being concerned about the vaccine. They had no problem when Sage Steele was fired from ABC, Disney, ESPN for comments about the vaccine. They had no problem when Roseanne Barr, who was a lefty hero her entire life, tweeted one thing and got fired from the #1 sitcom in the country, also on ABC. We know all the long laundry list of cancellations that they were all about. But what's particularly interesting about that Obama comment is there is no evidence, and I'd be happy to be proven wrong, there is no evidence that this had anything to do with government pressure. The affiliates were outraged, as anyone should be. Look, we've played you all of the stupid clips that Kimmel has done over the years, saying awful things, constantly demonizing half the country, but they put up with it, right? They put up with it. And again, he had a $100 million budget, making $16 million a year. That's an awful lot of change for a guy that was basically just doing what used to be late night was the idea of comedy that we could all kind of come around before we go to bed, and then you reset in the morning. He decided to cash in on telling half the country that we're Nazis and racists. Anyway, he apparently refuses to apologize. The affiliates have had it. There's no evidence whatsoever that the government had anything to do with this. And here's Karoline Leavitt laying that out.
With all due respect to former President Obama, he has no idea what he's talking about. The decision to fire Jimmy Kimmel and to cancel his show came from executives at ABC. That has now been reported, and I can assure you it did not come from the White House, and there was no pressure given from the President of the United States. And how do I know that, Kayleigh? Because I was with the President of the United States when this news broke in the United Kingdom. We were enjoying the beautiful and spectacular state visit that was put forth by the royal family and the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer. And I actually brought this news to President Trump's attention. He had no idea this was happening. It was a decision that was made by ABC because Jimmy Kimmel chose to knowingly lie to his audience on his program about the death of a highly respected man when our country is in a state of mourning.
Okay, so look, I happen to take Karoline Leavitt's word for it. That seemed pretty clear and concise and honest. You don't have to take her word for it, but there is simply no evidence of what Obama said, that the government is putting pressure. Now, ironically, if you remember those years when a few people had a cough and we called it COVID, the government, which was run by a guy named Joe Biden at the time, they actually were pressuring big tech to take down posts, including one of my tweets that you all know about COVID, saying mandates were coming and the vax wasn't working back in, I think it was July of 21. And we know that the government then colluded with big tech to silence people. Ironically, Barack Obama didn't have much to say about it then. So you have to decide who to believe here. But I assure you this, if the government was calling up ABC affiliates and calling Sinclair and calling Disney and saying, hey, this is finally a bridge too far. We don't like this Kimmel guy. You got to take him out. Well, then that actually would be a violation of the First Amendment, the same way that when the Biden government did it to you, right, to private citizens that didn't have big talk shows or $16 million a year gigs, they didn't say anything. I want to show you one more video before we bring on Chris, and this is from the perhaps last sane liberal in America. This is Bill Maher on Friday's Real Time, talking about the rhetoric around some of this and that maybe mocking people's death is a bridge too far, even for the tolerant lefties.
Well, somebody on your network got canned.
I think the official term was let go.
Okay, this is Matthew Dowd said you can't be saying these awful words and then not expect awful actions to take place. Yes, you can. I do expect that. I do not expect awful actions to take place. I think this is awful when you open this window. Like, I didn't like what he said, and what he said was vile and this and that. Irrelevant. Irrelevant. We don't shoot people in this country, and we don't defend it, and we don't mock their death.
And of course, Bill's right, and that's what I've been saying about the lowest common denominator, right? What's the absolute lowest bar, let's say, that you could set? It would be like, oh, someone got killed. I didn't agree with them, and I have to tell you that first, but you shouldn't shoot them. Yes, that's baked into what being an American is, that there's going to be people who are different than you and share opinions. Once you have to qualify, oh, and we shouldn't have assassinated that person, all bets are off. So Bill, to his defense, and he's obviously great on free speech, Bill is doing what we should all be doing right now, which is no exceptions around this, no qualifiers, no asterisks or anything else. Bill's protecting his own ass, right? There's a lot of people, the same type of people, by the way, that hated Charlie Kirk for all the wrong reasons. They hate Bill Maher for many of the same reasons, usually having to do with the defense of free speech, right? So Bill is protecting himself, but it's also protecting me and it's protecting you. That's the point. Like the idea, and it is good that this, and by the way, it's not cancel culture, that MSNBC got rid of this guy. He said something so profoundly ridiculous. If you say controversial things, you should basically expect this. Bill's right. You open up that door, you crack open that Pandora's box, and literally anyone who speaks for a living, anyone that takes any position that is slightly outside of what would be a very narrow Overton window, all bets are off. There will be lefties that hate people on the right that will say, well, he said something I didn't like, I can kill him. And there'll be people on the right that hate what the lefty said. Oh, we'll all just be like, well, you know, they probably shouldn't have started talking for a living because, well, this is what you get. So occasionally someone going away, not having the cushy gig because of something really stupid they said, is not cancel culture. It's deserved justice in a sense. Jimmy Kimmel does not have a right. We played you that video last week. Eric Swalwell said, Jimmy Kimmel has a right to a TV show. Nobody has a right to a TV show. That ain't in the Constitution, I assure you. There's nothing about rights to TV shows in the Constitution. And also, occasionally, if you're an analyst and you say something completely psychotic, the powers that be might be like, you know what, this person is not worthy of being an analyst anymore. But that guy, Dowd, he can start a podcast. We'll put him on Rumble if he wants. Like he can do all those things. So it has nothing to do with the First Amendment. Let's talk about Be Better Now for just a second. Then I'm going to bring on Rumble CEO Chris Pavlovski. If you or your partner is over 55 and dealing with bladder urgency, you know it's more than just a minor inconvenience. Trips, outings, and travels start to feel like they're all about finding the bathroom. And when one of you has a hard time, you both feel it. That's why so many people have turned to Betterman and Better Woman. These are clinically tested formulas trusted by thousands for more than 25 years. They help reduce urgency, cut down frequent trips, and support deeper, more restful sleep. All natural with no known side effects. They also give you something just as important: more confidence, more control, and more freedom to enjoy life together. Get them at BeBetterNow.com. That's BeBetterNow.com. And for our listeners, you'll get 10% off your first order with code Rubin10. Live fully with confidence and control. All right, Chris Pavlovski, CEO of Rumble, my colleague and friend, and guy who built this. You mentioned something that I've mentioned on the show a couple times now, but I'd love to hear the full story around it. That Charlie actually, not only has he been deeply involved in Rumble from the beginning, and I'd love to hear how you guys started talking about that, but he found this very building for you. And so much of what Rumble does now is about Sarasota and Longboat Key and this part of Florida and freedom. And I was telling people how, you started in Canada, let's say slightly less than free. So can you talk a little bit about Charlie's connection to all of this?
Yeah, well, first, welcome to Sarasota, Longboat Key. I'll step back and kind of tell you how I even found this place first and foremost. My parents have been coming here for 20 years as Canadian snowbirds. I fell in love with it, as you can see out there. It's as beautiful as it gets. But as Rumble was like transitioning into this small company and growing very rapidly late in 2020 and early in 2021, Charlie not only, before I get to the Longboat Key story, Charlie was actually the first investor in Rumble with JD Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, back in I think it was like April of 2021.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he was in that very, very first round, and he was out of that group, I would say by far the most active and most interested in that investment round person.
Did you know him at the time, or you met him because of the investment?
I don't exactly remember how I met him at that time, but it was probably through the investment as Rumble. Actually, I think I met him shortly after Bongino joined Rumble in late 2020. So I actually knew him a little prior to him investing. So even before the investors. And, he ended up joining that investment round back early in 2021. But the most important part was that he was like the most active investor, the one that was most interested in helping Rumble and most interested in like freeing speech as much as possible, allowing everyone to be able to have dialogue. He was adamant about that, as we already know. But he was instrumental in the building blocks of Rumble and really pushing that forward and supporting me, supporting this company to get where it was. And then that kind of brings me to how we ended up here. Obviously, my parents were coming here, and I fell in love with this place, and I thought it was the right place. It just felt like Florida. It was the freest state in the country in my mind, and it just felt right. And I remember Charlie telling me, he's like, I have a place in Florida in Sarasota. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. So he ended up coming to Sarasota, and we ended up looking for offices together. That's how involved he was. He didn't need to do that. Think about this. Like, as an investor, most shareholders are just looking for returns on their investment.
Right.
And Charlie wasn't that guy. In fact, I still think, Charlie held his shares as far as I remember. I don't know for sure, but I've had conversations with him where he told me he held his shares in the company and he never sold. So he wasn't about that return on investment like the other investors. He was in it for really helping Rumble. So we go around, we're looking at offices, we walk into this very building on this very floor, and we sit down in this like old boardroom. It was like it had to have been done in the 70s or the 80s.
Right.
I
came here when it was pretty disrepair.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And we got we had a reporter harass us when you were when you came with us here.
Yeah.
And so we walk into this boardroom and there's like tiles on the ground. The roof is falling apart. I think a hurricane just went through and it just really destroyed this building. And we're sitting in this like boardroom with these old chairs, this old wooden table, green carpets, and Charlie just looks around. And he's like, Chris, this is going to be the Rumble headquarters. This is going to be the free speech capital of the world. And I'm like, all right, we're going to do it. And I never looked back. We're now sitting in this studio in the building that Charlie helped pick. And like, I think, like I said, we've had many investors, many shareholders. Charlie was one of the few that really did it for the purpose of forwarding free speech, the actual idea of like doing something great for America. And that's where his heart was. That's why he was in this company. And that's why he helped build it with me. And he never stopped. We were meeting all the time. We were talking all the time. We're trying to figure out how to do certain things. And, he was always involved, deeply involved. And like, for that, I'm forever grateful.
Yeah.
Without him, Rumble wouldn't be where it is today.
And it's important to reiterate that he wasn't like an official advisor or anything. He was really doing this because he believed in the mission and he believed what Rumble was doing. Yeah, he had some stock, but like he didn't have to be wandering around finding buildings with you or advising you or coordinating on free speech events or anything else.
Yeah, no investor's ever done that. That's not usually what you expect out of the investor, but Charlie went above and beyond. He really touched this company in a way that I don't think many people know. And you really think about it, during that time, Rumble was the only thing. There was no X, there was no Elon.
Mm-hmm.
Rumble was the tip of the spear for free speech. And Charlie knew that. I knew that. This company knew that. And we did something that no other company did at the time. And we stood up for that First Amendment like no other.
What do you make of the state of free speech post what has happened to Charlie now? Because obviously we were at the memorial yesterday together. There was a lot of talk. I mean, I think every single speaker said something about his love of free speech. This company is the company lead. I think it's still the spear. I mean, X has helped a lot for a lot of reasons, but there's still a lot of confusion around the algorithm there and, are things being seen and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what do you make of the general state of free speech in a time when Charlie lost his life for it? And here we are defending it, basically through a tech stack.
Yeah, I think we have to understand that free speech is always going to be under attack. The truth is always going to be under attack. People that stand for freedom and freedom of expression are going to be under attack. We have to be brave. We have to be strong, and we have to defend it. We're not gonna have free speech by just sitting around and not doing anything. We're gonna have to like fiercely defend it. And like in the aftermath of what happened to Charlie, we went through a lot of, I'm sure you, but myself, I went through a lot of different emotions in the last week or two with respect to that. And like, obviously the ABC Jimmy Kimmel thing, I got really irritated. Like you're now seeing people talk about ABC, that they now, the Trump administration is infringing on free speech.
Yeah,
and that's that's really irritating to me, because that's not what free speech is.
Right.
Let me explain what actually happened in 2021
Yeah, right,
and what
exactly.
we were defending with Charlie. There were platforms like Twitter, like YouTube, that were out there parading that they were free speech platforms. Twitter said, Jack Dorsey, numerous times they're defending free speech.
Mm-hmm.
They were censoring political dialogue. They weren't censoring incitement of violence. They were censoring political dialogue, conversation about COVID, conversation about an election. YouTube was doing the same thing. Facebook was doing the same thing. And all these companies were parading that they were going to uphold free speech, yet they were censoring thousands, if not millions of people, millions, for sure millions of people on what they could and could not say. That's first, if you're going to parade that you're free speech, you're not free speech if you're doing that.
Where were you when it
mattered?
mattered?
Very simple.
Yeah.
But never in that moment was Fox News or CNN or any television show that's in the media, they always had the ability to change staff, always had the ability to, remove people, put other people in. And that's what ABC did.
Right.
His show's ratings were going down. They found this as an excuse to go possibly do it for that reason, or they did it for, what he said. I don't know. That's their internal, deliberations. But at the end of the day, they have they're exercising their free speech and their First Amendment rights by letting someone go on their
freedom of association
on their
is also
platform.
A thing, yeah.
Correct. So it's not even close to what happened in 2021 when you're deplatforming a president's communication to the public. There's a big difference between Facebook and YouTube, which are means of communication to the masses. Like, if you're not online to be able to communicate to your masses, you can't communicate to your constituents. That's like denying someone buying a cell phone to go call somebody. That's that's the way I look at that. But when you're talking about a media company like ABC, who literally like censors and does whatever they want because it's their free speech to exercise whatever they want to say, that's their First Amendment right. So it's really irritating to see like every Democrat come out and say this is a violation of free speech. Meanwhile, like Fox News was removing talent left and right from their network over the last 5 years. So was CNN. So was every other company out there that's like a media company. But all of a sudden now, when a media company changes talent, that's because they didn't like what he said or because his show ratings were going down. That's now an infringement of free speech.
Did you see?
No way.
See the? There's a meme going around of what Jimmy Kimmel said when Roseanne was fired by ABC for one tweet, even though she was a hero of the left at the time. Now the left doesn't love her so much. But he basically was like, "You have a responsibility to say the right thing, and anyone can decide to hire you or fire you."
It's hypocritical, right? Yeah. Like this is. I saw one with one that he did with Trump as well, and like it's just so hypocritical and it's so disingenuous. That's the part that bothers me. We actually here at Rumble, Charlie actually defended what the First Amendment really is here for and how it is to be used. And they're trying to conflate the idea of a media company changing staff to be an infringement of the First Amendment. No. It is exactly the exercising of the First Amendment to change your staff in your own entity. Every entity has its right to its own free speech, however they want to speak. And if ABC wants to speak with specific talent, they have that choice.
Contrary to what Eric Swalwell said, no one has a right to a TV show. You have a right to speak freely, but not to a TV show. So I'm going to end this with the easiest question I can possibly ask you. Can Jimmy Kimmel open an account on Rumble and do his show there?
He's welcome to open an account on Rumble and he can do his show there, but he has to stay within the terms of service, which is not incite violence.
And that's what it's all about. Good to see you, my man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Guys, it's time to strut into the bedroom like your junk just got a VIP invite to the party. Blue Chew's chewable tablets are a motivational coach for your man parts, giving you harder, stronger, longer-lasting edge like you're downstairs just chugged a protein shake and hit the weights. When you pop a Blue Chew tablet, your confidence will be so high that your shadow will call you Big Papa. It's not just sex. It's like your pelvis is auditioning for an action movie called The Boner Identity. Guys, this just isn't about performance. It's cementing your third legacy. Emphasis on leg. Who wrote this? Head on over to BlueChew.com to check out your options and level up your game. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew absolutely free. Just use promo code Rubin at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over to BlueChew.com for details and safety info. And big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast.
All right, we're going to jump to a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A. Let me just say real quick about Chris. He's walked out of the room, so I'm not going to glaze him in front of him. But I have never glazed, right? That's what the kids say? I got the word right? Okay, that was pretty good. I've never met an executive doing all of this stuff, a tech executive or a media executive or anyone else, that has so consistently said what they are going to do and go ahead and do it. And as a matter of fact, yesterday when they were showing one of the retrospectives about Charlie's career and building Turning Point from the ground up, that's exactly what Chris did with this. It's why we ended up partnering with Locals, and I'm just very proud to be here, especially to the backdrop of knowing that Charlie found this building. So, all right, let's get to some community questions. Margaret says, what was the most meaningful thing to you during Charlie's memorial service that you feel comfortable sharing? The entire thing, God, does that sound cliche and not specific enough? I've never, well, first off, believe it or not, I told this to Sage Steele and she didn't believe me. I've never been to a football stadium before. I've actually never been to a live professional football game. So it was the biggest stadium that I've ever been in. They said it's seated around 73,000, but they somehow were getting it close to about 100. And I'm telling you, on the way there, it was insane. It took what was a 5-mile ride, took us about 2.5 hours to get there. People literally holding babies in the freaking 95-degree Phoenix heat at 9 a.m., walking down the highway. It was to see the signs everywhere, the American flags everywhere. It felt like, in some sense, it was like an old school Trump rally that I'm sure many of you guys have been to. You've definitely seen the videos with all the American flags and all the joy and everything else. And then there was this clear religious revival piece to it as well. And then there's the other piece that Charlie was talking to young people. So there were a lot of really young people there too. There were just so many pieces to it. And then, sure, you see the cast of characters, right? So then there's the president and the vice president, and there's Elon right in front of me, and all, like, you see all these things, and then in some sense it starts feeling like the Muppet Show. Like, it's just like all these characters, but they're real people and they're right in front of you. But it was the feeling in the room. And even if you weren't there and you just watched it, I think you know what I'm talking about. There was an unbelievable feeling. As I said on the show yesterday, it just felt like everybody was like a centimeter away from crying the entire time. And then there were some laughs, and there were some prayers, and it was just everything at once. It was just unbelievably powerful. I hope that answer feels right to you, because it's the truth. Vic says, what advice would you give a Minnesota or Michigan resident who lives near the foreign enclaves who are fed up with the Muslim prayer sirens? So yes, they are doing in Minnesota now. There are parts of Minnesota, and I think they're doing it in Dearborn, Michigan, and probably some other places, where they are doing the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day, loudspeakers, like you are in the Middle East. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think you should consider moving. There obviously is going to be more and more pushback on this stuff, but there's no reason to think it's going to stop anytime soon. And I can tell you, if I lived in an area where they were doing the Muslim call to prayer or any other just loud blaring thing, I hate loud music. There is nothing I hate more than when I'm at the beach and someone's blasting their music on their radio, right? Like, or their speaker, their Bluetooth, whatever. I cannot stand it. Like, get headphones like everyone else. Or the worst is when you're on a plane and somebody with their iPad just decides not to use their headphones. It's something about like sounds. I would tell you with the kids, like, I don't like electronic noise things. I like wooden things. And I just don't like a lot of extraneous sounds. So the idea that I have to hear someone else's prayer, keep it in your mosque, keep it in your place of worship. But they don't want to do that. And that kind of is the signal they are trying to send to the citizens who are non-Muslim to live like dhimmis. You listen to our prayer, but you think they would be tolerant of anyone else's? Of course they wouldn't. We all know that. I know it's not politically correct to say, but we all know it. I would say you probably have to move if it's coming to your area now. It's not going away anytime soon. However, there will be places that don't allow it. And even in New York City, Eric Adams, polling at 6%, Eric Adams, he even changed the law just in the last 6 months or so that they'd be able to do more calls to prayer, I think, on Friday afternoons public. It's just like, yeah, everyone sees what's happening here, guys. Olaf says, who was sitting near you at Charlie Kirk's memorial? Well, I was sitting next to Sage Steele and her brand new husband, who got disturbed on their honeymoon, unfortunately, by the news of Charlie. But I absolutely adore Sage. And then I was in the red section, was the section right up front. So it was everybody there. I mean, it was Elon and Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi and Dan Bongino. It was basically everyone that you saw speak except for Trump and JD. Obviously, we're in a box upstairs. But again, sometimes it feels like the Muppet Show to me. Like, even though I know a lot of these people and I'm in this thing in a very like sausage making way, you see these people and it's like, wow, like that Charlie. I don't know that anyone else could have done it. If they had taken me out, if they had taken pick an influencer, like this thing that happened yesterday, it wouldn't have been that. there was something very special about what Charlie did, and everyone acknowledged it, and it was just very meaningful to be there. Crafty Cat says, being able to unplug and downshift after a long day is important. What is a hobby you enjoy when you're not working, parenting, writing, and making the best tequila ever? Oh man, well you mentioned some of the things that I like to do. I mean, basketball to me is that is like my freedom outside of everything else. I play on Wednesday nights for 3 hours, 6 to 9 p.m., and we play on Sunday mornings, 3 hours from 9 to 12, and then sometimes I play on Tuesdays too, and it's no matter, we're just getting out of the summer heat here in Miami, and it can be 95 and humid as hell, and my clothes are stuck to me after as if I jumped in a pool, and it's disgusting and gross. And now over the summer where it's so hot and sweaty, we have about 10 basketballs on the side of the court because every 3 plays we have to switch the ball because the ball is soaking wet. I mean, it's just insane. But I just love that time. It is the one time throughout the day that I can get the politics out of my head. I can be completely present. Like I can do it with the kids too, but like the presentness, I can do that with them. But like for an extended period of time, just focus on just playing, like just something that I love outside of that. And then when I'm playing with the kids, I can do that kind of thing too. But like that, if you're asking me about a hobby specifically, that would be it. I just love it. And the fact that I fixed my knee. And by the way, I spoke to Dr. Striano this week, who is the doctor who did my stem cells. He just did stem cells for our guy, Joey, here, who hurt his back while we were playing basketball about 2 weeks ago. And the amount of you guys who have reached out to him to get all sorts of help, not only from knee and joint pain and shoulders, but there's all sorts of other applications for stem cells. So if you haven't looked him up yet and you're having any sorts of problems, he is just an unbelievable human being. Dr. Richie Striano. He's just a great guy, and he watches the show. So shout out, Doc. Let's see here. Brendan says, do you think Trump and Elon will work together once again? Yeah, I do. I think that handshake, that moment, they knew they were standing, that they were sitting right in the box where everyone could see them. So they did it. It was good. It was needed. Hopefully that is within the spirit that Charlie was talking about. Look, what divides Trump and Elon, maybe it's some stuff around budgets. Maybe it's some stuff around credits for Teslas or EVs or whatever. But it is not the thing that is dividing most of us from the wackadoodle leftists. That's the bridge that seems unable to be built. I just don't see how it's going to work. The thing that divides them, maybe if they both take a little bit of Charlie's spirit and bring that back together, that would be great. I hope it happens. That it was intentional. Very little that happens that you see on camera is not intentional. They knew they were on camera. They both did the right thing, and it was great to see. Eurasian says, any chance of adding other dates in Australia, and what's the meetup situation going to be, if any? So a bunch of people have asked, there's a bunch of other private events and things that I'm doing. So I don't know that we're going to add any other theaters than the ones that we have right now. We are doing meet and greets after the show. So if you're able to come to any of those shows, we will do the meet and greet after, and I'll give you the 2-second hug, which I know people like to extend into 3 to 5 seconds, but we got to keep it to 2. Although if you're a couple and usually the husband is willing to forego his 2 seconds, I'll give the 4-second hug. We got to keep it to that. And yes, we will probably add some things on the fly. And from what I'm told, the tour is selling extremely well. If you haven't bought your tickets yet and you are down under, daverubin.com/events. Guys, let's throw to Balance of Nature real quick, and we'll finish up with a couple other questions on the other side.
If you're taking Balance of Nature, the smartest way to stay consistent is by becoming a preferred customer. That means your supplements are delivered automatically every 28 days, no remembering to reorder, no running out, no hassle. And here's the best part. Preferred customers always get the lowest price we offer with free shipping every single month. Your order just shows up at your door right when you need it. On top of that, you'll even get your own personal health coach at no extra cost. That's one-on-one support to help you stay on track, celebrate your wins, and keep moving forward towards your goals. So if you're ready to save money, stay consistent, and make your health routine effortless, becoming a preferred customer is the way to go. Just visit balanceofnature.com and sign up with code Rubin.
All right, Jenny says, I wonder if you can be truly religious without belonging to a church, synagogue, etc. I would say yes, but wonder what you think. Boy, that's a great question. And to the backdrop of everything with Charlie and the memorial service the other day, I mean, I think the answer to that is in that individuals are different. I think the answer is yes. Can you live a truly religious, deeply spiritual life, practicing the traditions and knowing the texts and all of those things without going to a place of organized religion? I think the answer to that is obviously yes. I think it's probably a lot easier to do within some sort of place of worship for the community aspect, for the for the group aspect, to learn from other people and be able to teach other people and all of those things. That's why, as we're pre-taping this, because I'm in Temple for Rosh Hashanah, for the Jewish New Year, which is basically the second highest holiday of the year. Yom Kippur in about a week and a half is the holiest day of the year, the Day of Atonement. But we do see this revival, and it's also interesting right now. The amount of people that are now going back to church and at least thinking about things differently. Everyone should figure out what works for them, and sometimes people have those moments where they're really into it and then they're really not, and then they come back and they leave, and all of those things. And that I think is an eternal game that will always go on. What I think the failure, unfortunately, of the, let's say, sort of secular world is all the secular world had to do better was just keep the crazies at bay. But for some reason, I think there are fundamental reasons for it. The liberal secular world, which is good, it actually is good, and it allows for pluralism, and it allows, especially from an American perspective, it allows all of us with our different traditions and stuff to come together and live peacefully, which is what we've done in this country. It got a little too fat on its goodness, and then it let all the bad guys in, right? That's why Gad Saad calls progressivism or wokeism, it's a mind virus. The parasitic mind is what he talks about. Or I've written about it, and I've likened it to the alien in the Alien movies. Like, it gets into the host and uses the host, and that's where you have to give them credit for what they have done. The secular liberal world, it is good, and we should understand that it is good. It can be the Enlightenment world is good. Yes, it can be framed through a religious prism, and that there was always a lot of debate. Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson had great debates for a couple of years over, did the Enlightenment just spring forth out of nowhere to give us Western values, basically, or was there a Judeo-Christian underpinning to that? I happen to agree with Jordan on that, but all the liberal secular world had to do was be a little bit better, but unfortunately it couldn't. It put tolerance too high in that hierarchy, and then it allowed a lot of intolerant things to come in, and now we're seeing the fruits of that. Joe says, how many pets and newborns do you think will be named Charlie after the next few months and years? That is a great question. My sister and my mom used to have a dog, a female dog, little Pomeranian named Charlie. There are a lot of female Charlie dogs. For some reason, I think there's going to be a lot. It's a great question. I'd love to see the answer on this in a year. I'm going to bet you, that every year they come out with the most popular names in America, and I'm going to bet you Charlie is going to be a top 5. I don't know where it's been for the last couple of years. It's a little more of an old school, more traditional name. I bet you Charlie is going to be a top 5 next year. And I think tons of dogs and cats and lizards. There's going to be a lot of Charlies, but we'll keep track of that. That's a great question. Shecky Green says, why do you think Crescent News Network, CNN, clever, rehire midwits and perverts like Doughboy Stelter and Jeffrey Toobin? I bring this up a lot, and it's kind of funny if you think about it. So Stelter gets fired on CNN for basically being exposed as a liar when it comes to everything, right? I don't even feel like giving it the long list. Toobin literally exposed himself on a Zoom call to colleagues. Stelter then gets fired, and what does he do? He gets a job teaching journalism, the very thing he was fired for at Harvard, of course, at Harvard. Then they bring him back. Toobin, they kick him off for about a year. Then they bring him back on, and then I forget who the interviewer was that has to give him his entry, his welcome back interview, like, so where have you been? And he's like, I'm sorry, I masturbated on the Zoom call. Like, are there no other lawyers out there? Like, I don't even care about Jeffrey Toobin. I don't. He did what he did, but you could have found some other lawyer. What is so great about Jeffrey Toobin that you thought, okay, let's bring back the masturbating lawyer? It just seems crazy. And Stelter, he was in him, but they did the same thing with Don Lemon, and then they got rid of him again, I think. They get rid of these guys who are terrible, and then I think what they realize in a weird way, and this is what I would say is the perverse set of pressures in the mainstream media. They've done such a poor job of everything for so long that in some sense they just want people to talk about them. So Stelter, whether you liked him or not or whatever, obviously I didn't and thought he was terrible at his job. He gets fired, and then whoever they put on, unless they're going to be talked about more than Stelter, you kind of want to bring Stelter back, even if it is to be made fun of. So it's very weird, and that's why the online thing is so freeing, right? Because I'm going to fail or succeed based on you guys, and in essence, it's based on if I'm doing something valuable, the proof is in the pudding. and the numbers will increase, the watch times will increase, et cetera, et cetera. You guys will subscribe and all of those things. These guys, Stelter just sits in a chair, and whether he's doing something good or bad, in some sense, it doesn't matter. It's like, are they talking about Stelter? Okay, he's lying about everything, but they're talking about him. Keep him around. Oh, that guy whacked off in front of in front of Abby Phillip. Make it happen, people. Give him a gig. Hinkle says, if you have an audience Q&A in Australia, that's a good one. Will you be asking those who disagree with you to ask their questions first, like you and Charlie did? Yes, we will be doing audience Q&A. We're still figuring out exactly what we're going to do. I think I'm going to do a little bit of solo stuff up front. Then we're going to do like an abbreviated Rubin Report with some clips. Then I have some special guests coming on that will join me, Australian politicians and journalists and things of that nature. And then, yes, when we do the Q&A, we will always do that. I have tried always to do that. Charlie taught me that around 2018 when we started doing Turning Point events together. If you disagree with us, come up first. Because otherwise what happens at a lot of these things is people want to come up and just say nice things to you. And that is great. Or they'll ask you to tell a story that they know already, or, whatever. And that's all lovely and wonderful. And it's nice to hear nice things. And it's nice when people like you and agree with you and all of those things. But that doesn't enrich the evening in any way. But if someone can come up to the stage and say, hey, you said this, I think this, can we talk about it? That's much more valuable. So we have to figure out a mechanism for it. One of the other things that's gotten tricky over the years when people do Q&As, and you guys any of you who have been to live shows, you see this. When you hand someone in the audience a mic, a lot of times they kind of want to go for 5 minutes, and you got 100 people behind them that want to get a question in. So we may do it. There are apps now. That's what we used on tour with Jordan. There are apps where people can basically scan a QR code and then they can submit the questions via app. But yes, we will go out of our way. If you disagree with us or you have a counterpoint of view, I will be happy to have those conversations. And that's the least I can do to honor Charlie. All right, I think we got one more. Rochelle says, what was your favorite Halloween candy when you were a young, trick or treater? It is the same one that in the ripe old age of 49 is basically the only candy that I will eat on Halloween, which is going to be the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. I always loved them. And, on Halloween, you're going to get the little ones, not just the regular cup. You usually get those little bite-sized ones. I loved them when I was 8. I loved them when I was 20, and I love them at 49. I'm very excited for Halloween this year. I already know. I don't know if Justin and Luke are watching the show today, but they're going to be Ghostbusters. It's going to be a big Ghostbusters thing. We got a real Ghostbusters theme going throughout the house right now, and we're early in on Halloween. We're all decked out for Halloween. Anyway, that was a nice way to end the show. We didn't have to end the show with politics or anything else. Thank you for watching, everybody. We will be back in studio live on Thursday. Tomorrow we've got something at 11 a.m. for you. You'll find out when it airs. Back in studio live on Thursday. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.